Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you all. We're so excited with the amount of people that are here today. Yay! Thank you for coming to this session. My name's Sarah Curry. I'm the Organizational Excellence Leader for AWS's Global Services Security Team, and I have my good friend Rich with me here today.
All right, my name is Rich Hua, and I serve at Amazon as a worldwide head of our Epic Leadership Program. I'm also the Chief EQ Evangelist at Amazon. Yes, we have one. And Sarah and I will be talking about emotionally intelligent leadership, security leadership to accelerate your innovation. So you might be wondering what Epic is. Epic is actually an effort to train leaders in social and emotional skills so they can lead with greater empathy, purpose, inspiration, and connection. And you may be wondering, why do security leaders need Epic skills? Well, there's a few interesting data points that we should consider. 53% of cybersecurity professionals are basically burned out, and some are calling it an industry crisis. By 2025, a recent study found that 50% of leaders, such as yourselves, will actually change jobs due to too much stress on the job. AI is dramatically shifting things. Things are more uncertain and complex and ambiguous than ever before. And one of the greatest skills that we need as leaders in security is the cognitive and emotional skills to manage that complexity and ambiguity. And finally, the Work Trends report from Microsoft recently found that there are 3 key skills for workforce-ready future, and that is emotional intelligence, flexibility, and the third one being analytic judgment. So the fact is, AI will automate everything that can be automated. So what does that leave us with? All the human, social, emotional stuff. So we're going to talk about the neuroscience of innovation. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence to supercharge your security leadership. We'll jump into a case study that Sarah will talk about, an emotionally intelligent leader, and then you'll get some resources for further growth. So diving right in, a little neuroscience. Anybody ever take neuroscience in college or high school? All right, a few of us, you'll enjoy this especially. Dr. Mark Brackett at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence found that emotions impact all 5 of the things you see here on the screen. Our ability to pay attention, our decision-making, our performance and creativity, our relationships, and our physical and mental health. Now, which ones of these would you be willing to remove from your repertoire of skills during a workday? Right? I mean, obviously none of them. They're all incredibly important. And there's a bit of a myth that we can make completely objective decisions, but that's not actually true. Our mood affects it, and knowing how to regulate that in a productive way is a key to making good decisions, especially when it's highly important and highly critical. Now, I have a little sort of a quiz question. I'd like to do a poll. What percentage of the workday, then, do we actually experience emotions? How many of us think it's A, 10%? Raise your hand. All right, any Vulcans out there? All right, got it. How many of us think it's B, 25%? All right, got a few more. How many of us think it's C, 50%? Any takers? All right, how about D, 75%? All right, got more on that one. How about E, 90% or more?
Look at how smart everyone is.
Well, you're a
Did
really
the blue
smart
give it
group.
away?
The fact that it was a different color probably tipped it off a little bit. That was actually not supposed to happen, but it is in fact E, 90% of the time. I can tell I got a
smart group. We have a smart group here.
You're on it. So the reality is, research has found that it is 90 to 100% of our day. Almost everything we do has emotions involved. You're experiencing an emotion right now. Now, hopefully it's a little more like excitement and curiosity versus like boredom or something like that. But the reality is those impact our work. Yerkes and Dodson did a very, very interesting study a few years ago. And they looked at our ability to perform at tasks, even cognitively, compared to the amount of stress that we're experiencing. And they found that it's actually a curvilinear relationship, meaning if it's too low, you're actually bored and tired and you look maybe a little bit like this. On the other hand, if it's too high, you wind up being in the wacky zone and you look a bit like this. Any of us maybe felt like that lately? Maybe some kind of security escalation? But so the key thing is you want to actually be in that sweet spot in the middle where you're creative, where you're making good decisions, where you're focused and you're thinking straight. And Dr. Daniel Goleman, who's the father of emotional intelligence in many ways, calls it maximum cognitive efficiency. Have you ever seen somebody who's really smart do something really dumb? Right? We've probably all done that at different points in our lives. That's called minimum cognitive efficiency. So what we want to do is maximize that by having our stress levels be in the right spot. Now, there do actually happen to be ways that we can do that. Before we jump into a few practicals, I love this quote from Dr. Antonio Damasio. We're not thinking machines that feel, we're actually feeling machines that happen to think. And did you know that leaders' mindset and attitude determines 50% of the team or organization's attitude? So making sure that our mindset and emotional state and attitude are correct really plays an outsized role in making sure that all the people around us also do the same. So let me talk about some practical tips on emotional intelligence to supercharge your security leadership. You know, one thing that's really fascinating is at Amazon, we consider ourselves a very data-driven company. And oftentimes, very senior leaders ask me, hey, what's all this emotional, fluffy stuff have to do with it? And my response is, emotions are data. And they're actually very, very important data points to consider. And so what we want to do is, since we have those 90 to 100% of the time, know how to use them for us rather than against us. All right, so I'm going to give you two simple but incredibly powerful techniques to optimize yourself, especially in high-stress situations. Now, I have a little poll. How many of us have woken up recently in the morning and said, you know, yesterday was just not stressful enough. I really hope there's more stress at work today. Anyone in that category? Probably nobody, right? So the idea of making sure that we can manage the stress that's too much in a healthy way is really key. So the first thing, positivity. A positive outlook has been found to increase our customer service, our ability to be creative, and our ability to actually have high-quality work. When we're a bit freaked out, our ability to do things at a high bar is going to diminish unless we can attenuate that to the right level. And so how many of us here consider ourselves pretty positive people in general? Okay, all right, this is a good number. You know, it's about somewhere around 55, 60%. So whether you are generally positive or not, there are ways to increase it. Interestingly, in our field of work in security, being a bit pessimistic is obviously, you know, an actual good trait to have in the things we're doing, but we want to balance it. And so the key is to have a healthy balance of positivity to negativity so we don't get pulled into a negative vortex. And since we already have a negativity bias, it's important to intentionally be positive. What's one of the most powerful ways? Simply gratitude. I teach this across Amazon, taught it to hundreds of thousands of people. And the idea is, I call it the 3x3. Essentially, you write down 3 things you're grateful for every day for 3 weeks. And by doing that one simple thing, you actually rewire your brain to be more positive. This is the #1 technique used by cognitive behavioral therapists to treat people with depression. And when you do it, you actually create dopamine, serotonin, the 2 major neurotransmitters targeted by antidepressants. So gratitude is actually pretty powerful. And if you express it to someone else, it actually doubles the impact. The second thing is breathing mindfully. The Navy SEALs popularize this because when bullets are literally flying around them, they do a particular thing called box breathing that helps them regulate their stress. It decreases heart rate and blood pressure and downregulates really intense emotions like anger or fear. So the box breath goes like this. You breathe in for a 4 count. You hold it for a 4 count. You breathe out for a 4 count. And you hold it out for a 4 count. Right? Don't take my word for it. I'm going to ask you to do it with me right now. This may be the weirdest thing you've ever done with AWS, but humor me for 30 seconds, and I'd love to see how it impacts you. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to sit up in your chair, put your feet on the ground, comfortable but sitting up straight. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. If your wallet is out, you might want to hang on to it. Go ahead and take a nice big breath in through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. Now let's do the box breath. In through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. In through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Open your eyes. How'd that feel? All right. How many of us feel calmer, a little, more energetic, or just a little more focused? Go ahead. I'd like to see. All right, nice. So we only literally did it for like 35, 40 seconds. If you do it for a couple of minutes, you quantifiably change the state of your body. It is why the Navy SEALs use it. Quite powerful. Now, you can also optimize your team for innovation. And on one final poll, what do you think is the greatest factor for team innovation? How many of us think it's A, really smart people? How about B, the right combination of skills? How about C, years of experience? How about D, charismatic leadership? How about E, high team EQ? All right, again, we got a really smart crew right here.
I love it.
It is, in fact, E. In fact, at MIT, they did some research, and they found that the factors that determine collective intelligence, which is the team intelligence, are not anything to do with IQ, average or smartest person. The three things that determined collective intelligence were average social sensitivity, aka empathy, extent to which the group took turns in their conversations, and thirdly, percentage of women in the group. And their hypothesis was that women actually tended to score higher on social sensitivity.
Woo.
So this idea, yeah, good job. So this idea of empathy and understanding the team was actually more of a factor for maximizing cognitive efficiency than the actual IQ itself. So being able to do that is really a powerful, powerful technique. Now, I'm going to actually hand it over to Sarah to do the last part here. And she's going to do a case study on an emotionally intelligent security leader. Okay, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, so something that can happen when you're talking about emotional intelligence is it can feel really overwhelming in the sense of, okay, how am I going to implement all of these different new programs, mechanisms, top-down approach? And what Rich and I really want you to take away is that the change can start with you. As a leader, even if you're not in a position of authority, that you can have a positive influence on your team, your customers, and different stakeholders that you're working on. So if you've been to any of our security culture sessions, you might know about some of the different foundational aspects that we talk about. So these different cases are definitely aspects that you can apply emotional intelligence. So some of those being making sure that you're embedding security into the business, making sure that you really understand the outcomes that your stakeholders are trying to achieve, and using that emotional intelligence to better relate to them and build trust with your stakeholders. Rich and I today, with our limited time, we're just focusing on the foundation of empathy. So that's what we're going to talk about with our case study. But ultimately, this will lead to building a fearless security culture. So making sure that your security builders and also engineers and any other stakeholders in your organization feel empowered to escalate at any moment, knowing that there will be no blame and they will be thanked actually for their escalation. And then lastly, this will lead to empowering your different builders to become security champions. We all know it's a little tough to hire security professionals out there. And so one of the ways that we help scale ourselves is having different champions out there so that we can make sure that we're not only scaling our security, but also our emotional intelligence as well. So let's meet Bob. Bob was not always an EQ champion. He had to put the work in and essentially read different articles. He read some different books. Does anyone know Adam Grant in here with the Hidden Potential? Okay, I see some head nods, yes. So he read Adam Grant. He read about what can he do to build a more fearless security culture, and starting really from that foundation of empathy within himself. But you see, Bob noticed something. Have y'all heard of this thing called Gen AI? Yeah, I know. We can't go anywhere without hearing about it. His team now had this new huge domain that had permeated every single part of cybersecurity. So they were working longer hours, trying to figure out policy that didn't exist. Bob also works for a global financial company, so they're thinking about regulations. They're trying to make sure that DORA and the EU is getting implemented. They're also worried about their NYDFS audit coming up in the fall. So there's a lot going on. They're feeling stressed out, and he's noticing a lot of burnout amongst his team. And so Bob wants to be proactive about that. But instead of being demanding and going in and making sure that he's asking more of his team, telling them they need to be more positive, or they need to make sure that they're showing up and smiling, he wanted to make sure he was having vulnerable, authentic conversations with his team. But in order to do that, he wanted to make sure that he was perspective seeking first. So Rich does some amazing trainings on this, but perspective seeking essentially is flexing that EQ muscle and making sure that you're taking a second to think about what others are going through. What is this team thinking? What are they feeling? What are some beliefs that Bob might have that he thinks he knows are right, but maybe he doesn't? For example, Bob just signed a contract back in 2022 that he thought it was the best tool you could possibly have. Turns out 2022 was a while ago, and it's not longer up to industry standards. So maybe Bob needs to challenge his own beliefs about how he can be a better leader for his customers. And just making sure, what is he missing? So what Bob wanted to do is making sure he's showing up with empathy. And again, not having a top-down approach or a demanding approach, but having inspiring leadership. And so in order to do this, he made sure to set the precedent with his team as he set up his one-on-ones. Because who's gotten a message from their manager saying, do you have 5 minutes to talk? And you're like, oh, shit, I am losing my job. I have. And then they just want to chat. So Bob didn't take that approach. He set up a scheduled meeting and said, hey, I really value you as a leader. You are doing such an amazing job. I know our team's been working long hours lately. We've had some security events, and there's so many different things happening in our industry. I want to better show up for a leader, or better show up as a leader for you. That's what this meeting's for. Just so you know, I'm going to ask you about how's your mental health? I'm going to ask you, what are your dreams and aspirations? What are your current challenges? So that gave this individual contributor time to think about that and know that those were the questions that were going to be asked so that they weren't bombarded with this one-on-one saying, why is my manager asking me about my personal life? Why are they asking me how I'm doing mentally? What's going on? So that gave this person time to think about it. And most importantly, Bob made sure to regulate his own stress before meeting with his team. He knew he might get some feedback around that maybe there was ways that he could be a better leader, and that is okay. We all can learn and grow in different ways. And so he wanted to make sure that he showed up and he wasn't defensive and he was listening not to refute their ideas or feedback, but really taking that in authentically and making sure he's building that genuine connection. So again, Bob did his box breathing out. And did you know that actually, like Rich said, it repairs your heart cells. And again, it makes you feel more positive and relaxed and going in and knowing that you're going to have more compassion for those you're talking to. Who likes this image of this office? I saw this and I was like, I want my office to look like this. So imagine Bob in here having authentic, genuine one-on-ones. So Bob took these one-on-ones and discussed with the team saying, how are you doing? You know, what's going on in your personal life? Starting off with your personal life first. And you know what he learned is that not only was his team working longer hours, some of them were building POCs because they're super excited about Gen AI, but they were doing it outside of their regular jobs, so they felt pretty overloaded. But he also found out that these team members were going through a lot outside of the office and their personal lives. One of his team was dealing with an elderly parent and caring for them, making sure that they were able to make their appointments. Another one was a single mom who had to deal with childcare responsibilities and was struggling to deal with handling escalations while also making sure that she could manage schedules. And by understanding this, Bob could really take the time to think about what can I do as a leader to actually implement different mechanisms or programs to help people out. So one of the things he did and noted was some people felt like when they escalated, they didn't actually feel like they were being supported. And Bob, again, was not defensive. He made sure to take that feedback and say, okay, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm going to figure out how to make this better. So what Bob created is this flywheel, and this is actually something me and some of my leaders actively use and practice to make sure that when we have an active escalation, we, again, come in with our box breathing, making sure that we ourselves are regulated and feel calm. And when there's an idea or an issue that's escalated, the senior leader in that room comes in and says, Mitt, because I know you and I see you in the audience, yes? Thank you so much for escalating. I really appreciate you, and we're so thankful to have you on the team, so we caught this issue. And this is going to help that person feel recognized, and again, make sure that they can have a more equitable workplace, so that then when there isn't another issue, they know that they can escalate without any fear of blame. Bob also created more equitable on-call schedules, and this is going to lead to stronger defenses. Imagine making security decisions when you're burnt out. I'm sure we've all done it. We're all feeling fatigued. That's not what you want from your team. You want high productivity, and you want people that are at their best potential. And so you're going to do that by creating equitable on-call schedules. Thinking about, are you too US-centric? Maybe you have people in EMEA or APJ, and you're always holding your calls at times that don't really work for them. Maybe it's too early in the morning. So making sure you have clear handoff processes and pre-schedule time for escalations. You know, we like to pre-schedule time for one-on-ones, but if you know that you're probably going to have an escalation because it just naturally happens, put some time in your calendar. And lastly, Bob taught his team, not only do you need to manage your time, you also need to manage your energy and making sure that you're recovering. So, Rich, I'd like to ask people, what's your favorite 15-minute break that you take in between your 90-minute energy cycles?
Probably my favorite one is go out for a walk. If I move my body, I go out for a walk with my dog or my wife, who's better company than my dog, actually. When I do that, it actually helps me reset and come back a bit refreshed and ready to go.
I love that. Yeah, walks are one of my favorite things. I have a cat, so my cat doesn't go on walks, but he does like to play fetch, so sometimes we do that, which is fun. So this is going to help Bob and his team essentially to make sure that they're feeling more refreshed, and again, taking that time to recover, so not just focusing on the time, but also your energy. So what happened? Essentially, Bob's team felt more energized. They felt like they had a better relationship with their manager in order to come to them with not only issues that they saw, but also come to Bob when they were dealing with personal things that they needed to take time off for, maybe needed a mental health day. And what did they see? They saw an increase in mitigating time to closure on security tickets. They were able to see better decision making. And most importantly, with innovation, the team was actually able to take time to have hackathons and be excited about their work and think around corners about what kind of security is coming down the pipeline. And so what is the lesson here? The lesson is that essentially security is not only the thing that you need to look at when it comes to technology, but you need to think about empathy and emotional intelligence. You know, security is not just about metrics, risk, compliance. It's really about our people as well, and making sure that we're showing up for them and building authentic relationships and that security community so that we can build not only a more innovative future, but also a better and more equitable future as well. So, Rich, what resources do we have that people can tune into?
Yeah, we just really touched upon these skills, but if you're a customer of AWS, we actually are happy to engage with you. Talk to your account manager. We have everything from 1-hour keynotes all the way to full-length workshops to help leaders learn these skills so they can be more like Bob in the way they lead. There's also a couple of great resources online, an ebook about emotional intelligent leadership, as well as a whole innovation website with more great resources.
And we also have some great reading lists for you as well. So I mentioned Adam Grant. Here's some recommended reading, or if you're an audiobook person, you can find these in audio version as well to go listen to on your walks as you're taking your 15-minute breaks in between your 90 energy bursts. So thank you so much. We are so happy that you all came today. We really appreciate your time. Rich and I are going to take questions off to the side here because we have another session coming in, but really appreciate your dedication to emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And one final plug, please go ahead and complete the session survey. The more people who let us know that this is valuable for them, the more of these we'll include in future events for AWS. So thank you very much. We'll be over here on the side. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your conference.